This side of that big old house is Malham Tarn. It is down here, a small lake. It drains via this stream that you can see now, coming around there and across that way and down here and through a couple of walls and another road down here. And it would be a lovely tranquil spot if this wasn't a road and in use by motor vehicles. I hate those things. Ugly, they're noisy, they smell bad. Really hurts if one hits you. There is the stream, going that way. Oh, should mention where that guy is sitting. Where that guy there is sitting, there's a signpost which points various directions, including up to the Tarn. So if you want to do the 27 Dales Way, starting down here, one of those wooden signs there will point you around the back of the Tarn and up to Fountains Fell, good grief, up there. The little southern bit, which tags Malhamdale, strong hint, is this way. Oh, see the acorn? We're also on the Pennine Way. They have bits in common. Down here is a path. I think it goes right under that sheep. You know what, I'll just go round the sheep. Oh look, over here there's a path. One of those places where the path isn't right up. Oh, it's obvious from this angle, you can see, because the grass is a different colour. Right, path. And again with the disappearance of the path, and again a sheep. Langscar Gate right, Malham Cove this way. Now it's been kind of dry for a few weeks. It's been hot and sunny and dry, apart from a little bit of very recent rain. For several weeks. There was a lot less water in Jant's Foss and farther up the same stream at Gordale Scar waterfall than I'm used to seeing there. There's probably a lot less water in Bolton Strid right now than normal. It might be interesting to see how far down into the Strid the rocks are visible. And there's also quite a bit less water than usual in this stream to my left, draining Malham Tarn. Flows just this side of that stone wall. But you know, this is the Yorkshire Dales. Apart from the places like Littondale and the very top of the Ure, most of these watercourses don't have a completely dry up. And you saw there was water back there running down this watercourse. It hasn't completely dried up. There is still a stream. So an astonishing amount of wool. I think something very bad has happened to something. I don't see any bones. But I also don't see any water. There is some up there. Then it hits that patch of rocks, and down here there is just ground that looks like maybe water sometimes flows there. And this thing here is a hint of what's going on. This is actually the watercourse. That's another sheep. And that is a lark, which is going to be kind of hard to see at this angle. There you go. More loose rocks, strongly suggesting stream quite often comes here, and then something. Yes, this side of it, of those rocks, there's nothing. Well, there's a stile, where it's a footpath over from over there for people who don't want to bother revisiting the car park. Down here, there is distinctly no watercourse. But think back to Gordale Scar and the stream that was flowing through a hole in the rock, and you get a pretty good hint of why. This is limestone, and while limestone itself is impermeable, and you can form a chunk of limestone into a bowl or a cup, and it will hold water. A layer of limestone on a geologic scale, a stratum, naturally forms into blocks. And obviously where the blocks have tiny hairline cracks between them, those cracks aren't watertight. The water can seep down through them. If you could get fresh, brand new limestone, deposited just last million years, it takes a while to build a layer of limestone, and run water over it, it would run over the surface and you would lose a tiny amount down those cracks. But if it rains on your limestone, or it rains on, you know, that whole catchment area up there, and forms the tarn, and then that overflows this way, another strong hint, that rainwater picks up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Even before the Industrial Revolution, there was less of it around, but there was some. It becomes acidic, and the little bit that's going down through the gaps in the limestone dissolves the sides of those gaps. It also dissolves the tops of the blocks as it flows over them. By dissolving the sides of the gaps, at least just a little, until the very weak carbonic acid becomes saturated, you widen the rain, the stream, widens the cracks. Over time, more and more water goes down that crack, and less flows over the surface. And where that water is, where there was a tiny amount of water seeping out through the cracks lower down, eventually the whole stream is going down through the ground and then reappearing farther down the slope. Give it hundreds of thousands of years, however long it's been since the last ice age, since the glacier created a slope that cuts across granite, limestone, slate, or slate, limestone, more slate, or whatever it cuts through. There's something about that, you know. Limestone is deposited very slowly at the bottom of seas with prolific life of certain forms, and is in fact the skeletal remains of life forms. And silt is deposited in river estuaries. So if you have a layer of silt on a layer of limestone, a layer of slate, on a layer of limestone, on a layer of slate, up here, a couple of 100 meters above sea level, that must have been lifted at some point. And again, millions of years. Tectonic drift, you know? Plate tectonics. Huge chunks of the Earth's surface moving at centimeters per year. Given enough time, can lift those layers of rock hundreds of meters above sea level. But there, where the stream is running over them, it runs over the layer of slate or granite or whatever impermeable layer is on top of the permeable limestone layer. Permeable layer of limestone, not layer of permeable limestone. It gets to the limestone and it sinks into it. That spot back there is called water sinks, because that's what happens there. Then deep underground it'll flow through whatever channels it has opened, and dude, you do not step in the dead sheep. That really is a dead sheep, it has ribs and everything. Ugh. This has been there long enough to stop stinking. It'll flow through whatever channels it's opened, and obviously we have rainfall and we have dry periods, as witnessed right now. So the amount of water coming down that stream varies. A long way downriver, where you have many huge catchment areas flowing together, you may get fairly steady flow. York getting flooded several meters deep every year, notwithstanding. Some areas get very steady flow. Up here we get varying flow, which means you have continuous water flow through the entirety of a flooded cave. You have some water flow through the lower parts of a wet cave, and you have no water flow through a dry cave, which used to be the water channel before the water eroded, widened the channels lower down enough to just not need that one anymore. And that window rock in Goredale is an example of a wet cave. It's just a very short one. And with the water going down through the caves, obviously it reaches the bottom of the limestone layer, which is tilted up because of plate tectonics, and it fills in whatever cracks have been eroded there, but then it's got nowhere to go, so it backs up, fills into great higher and higher elevation until it gets to where the bottom edge of the limestone and the top edge of the slate below it, or whatever's below it, have been exposed by the glacial erosion. Once it gets there, it can come out of the ground as a spring. Find Ingleborough Hill on a map. You may do better on bing.com than on Google, because they have the Ordnance Survey maps. If you set it to Ordnance Survey and zoom in. If you zoom in until you get red dotted lines, that's the 50,000 scale map, which is pretty good. If you zoom in farther and get green dotted lines, that's the 25,000 scale map that I like to use for walking, because it shows a lot more detail. And on Ingleborough Hill you can see a stream runs from the top down to the south, and southwest, I think southwest-ish, and then disappears down a great big hole called Gaping Gill. If you look at photographs of Gaping Gill, you will see that it is a very big hole indeed, where all the limestone has been eroded, or the bits that were eroded. The erosion has been sufficient to allow the undissolved bits to fall down, and there's a heap of rubble at the bottom. And there is a a very tall waterfall dropping down the centre of that huge space that the stream has created. If you look back to the map and look farther downhill, you'll see a line of springs, all at very similar elevation, along the foot of that slope, and that line of springs is where the nature of the underlying rock changes. So above the spring line is limestone, which is what I'm walking on now, and it's full of holes where the stream used to flow, or still does flow, or sometimes still flows when the rain's been heavy. And below the line of springs is whatever impermeable layer is underlying that limestone. How is this relevant to what you see here? Well, there's your watercourse. I've just come down that notch on the left side, and suddenly there's another notch there where another stream disappears underground. But it eroded this long ago, and maybe there's been some substance since then. Subsistence, sorry, not subsidence. No, subsidence, not subsistence. I'm not short of chocolate, you're short of chocolate. And it continues way down that way, and you can see the limestone scarps on the sides where the ground has been eroded and has fallen away, exposing the faces of those limestone blocks that make up limestone layers of landscape. You can also see more of them up there above my current elevation. And a signpost indicating directions to a couple of places. Now here we have a double stile, isn't that nice? You get double stile points for crossing it. Yeah, the problem with doing a lot of cycling and a lot of hiking and eating a mostly vegetarian diet and sticking to small quantities of tasty beer rather than swilling down pint after pint of idiot fuel. The problem is that there's nothing behind me to stop my trousers falling down. I need some more of those trousers that have a belt. That might help. one pile of rubble at the bottom of that notch. That's where the watercourse I was following apparently used to be a waterfall. Now, whatever chunks of limestone were there have fallen down and rolled down, or been pushed down by floods, and been, or of course been picked up and used to build this wall, and have left a cliff face. And that stream back there that disappeared into the ground is still flowing right under my feet. Or approximately under my feet, of course. The underground watercourse is not obliged to follow the track of the above ground watercourse. It could be significantly off to one side or another. Found some of it. We have a track of moss where there is water coming out between those rocks and supporting a little moss garden all the way down here and dripping off the moss and actually running across the path. There must be one very big single slab of limestone under that particular bit. Fancy a look back? There you go. Oof, man, that light level. Right, that's the sunlit side. And that's the shadowed side. And that's the sky. So put together your own view back from those views. because this camera ain't going to give you all three at once. Forwards to inevitably having to stop recording and start another clip because this is approaching 28 minutes long. View ahead is just opening up and I'm going to have to stop. That's alright, I can start again straight away.